Hey, everybody, and welcome to 20 Minutes with Tony. I'm so thankful everyone dialed in today. We're still letting some people into the room, but let's go ahead and get started because we are at time right now. So this week, I really want to lead off with one of my absolute favorite places. And I couldn't resist because I'm actually in the Orlando area. It's a beautiful day here. I couldn't resist doing this week's session outside. But when we think about great companies for customer experience, of course, Disney, always thought about as one of the big heavy hitters. But what Disney does really well is they really think about your overall journey, your overall experience, your overall expectations, and they roll all those things together in a meaningful way. And I think from the time you get excited about booking your trip to the time you actually book it, to the time you get on a plane or in a car and drive there and maybe get to the airport and take the bus over, they really have been very thoughtful about each part of that overall experience. In fact, I always think about the very first time we went to Disney, my wife and I, when we got married. And I always think about how they anticipated what we were going to need if they asked if we were celebrating anything, the way that they gave us just married buttons to walk around with and really enjoy our celebration. So the way that Disney is so intentional always reminds me that we too can be intentional in all of our businesses. And that comes back to thinking about customer experience, and it's about thinking about team experience. And so, all that said, that's really the path to sustainable growth. And a lot of people ask me why. Why does customer service and employee experience lead to growth? They're always curious about that. And I know we always lead off by talking about this, but happy customers spend more. Happy customers spend more and they spend more often. They're more cost effective to keep a customer than to find or attract a new one. If you've ever spent any money on advertising, you sure know customer acquisition, huge cost. And then finally, happy customers, loyal customers, they're going to recommend you and they're going to defend you. So customer experience overall is driven by journey. It's driven by the experiences at every touch point that your customers, your consumers, your guests have with you. And this could be online, or this absolutely could be something that's happening in store or virtually. So anyone here out there walked your business? Tell me, go in the chat right now, type in if you have walked your business and thought about things from your customer's point of view. Have you thought about it? Good. We got a lot of people chiming in saying that they have, and that is outstanding. So when I think about customers that think about or when I think about companies that consider their customer point of view, Amazon is one of those companies. They always said that Jeff Bezos at the very beginning would pull out a chair and leave it empty at the corporate table when they were having big meetings, because that was important to represent the customer. That empty chair reminded everybody to think about the end user who was buying that product, using that thing, whatever it was they were buying off of Amazon. It's easy to get disconnected, especially if you're in a call center or a contact center and maybe you're not seeing or talking to your customers. So make sure that you understand ultimately who your users are. And Amazon reminded us to do that with this empty chair analogy. So remember, pull out a chair at your table for your customers. Also love quotes. So this week's quote, if you know it, type it in the chat. If everyone is moving forward together, then success takes care of itself. Who said that? Anybody? Oh, that's a good guess. Yes, you got it. Absolutely. It was Henry Ford who said that. And I think that's just a great way to really consider, keeping the focus on the future, on moving forward, on making things easy. Because when you take care of all those disparate elements, stuff kind of takes care of itself. So the next piece that I want to talk about is, when we talk about customer journey, and I know I mentioned that earlier, and that is this week's topic is your customer journey, but you have to know who your customers are first. So here is the first exercise I want you to think about. Who are your customers? Inside of your business, you probably have a few large constituencies of customers who represent your key segment. So, I was talking to somebody the other day, we were talking about the airline industry. So at the airline industry, if you were going to dumb it down, do it to a base level, you might have those who travel a lot, those who never travel, those who sometimes travel, those who travel for business, those who travel for pleasure, and those who maybe travel for a mix of both. But everybody's mission is different. I know when I would get on a plane, and I before the pandemic, I was on a plane every week going somewhere. And it's easy to get used to being a business traveler, right? As soon as you're used to the process, I think I was showing up after I had TSA pre-check and that kind of stuff. I was showing up at the airport maybe an hour before flight time. By the time I parked and got in and checked my bag, I was walking through the security checkpoint maybe 40 minutes before my plane would take off, which meant by the time I got to my gate, grabbed a bottle of water, it was time to start boarding my plane. But then there are those who don't travel very often at all, who may show up 2 hours before flight time, maybe 3 hours before flight time, because they don't know what to expect. And that's okay. But airlines have to understand that, when someone walks in, they're going to see that kiosk. And if you've ever checked in on a kiosk, first time, you kind of got to figure out what buttons to push. But after that, it becomes kind of easy. So, airlines have to understand some people are going to be really good at that, but others, they're going to have to look for those people who are kind of looking around, fretting, staring at the machine, trying to figure out what to do so that they can go and help them. And that's where you need to understand your customers. Or those who travel for pleasure have a very different need set than those who travel for business. I'm more likely to visit an airport bar if I'm traveling for pleasure. I'm more likely to perhaps upgrade my ticket if I'm traveling for pleasure. I'm more likely to have a drink on the plane. I'm less likely to be concerned really about arrival time, plus or minus an hour. But if I'm a business traveler, on-time arrivals are much, much more important. Now, they're important to everybody, but much more important to a business traveler who may be flying in for a meeting, or I used to fly in to meet with clients all the time, and I was on the clock, right? I was trying to make sure I was there on time. And so that was always important, the timing of the arrival. So understand your customers and what's important to each one of those segments or personas will help with what we're going to talk about today. So when I think about the journey, when I think about the guest and consumer journey, here's the big part. Yes, it has to be embedded throughout your organization. Sure thing. Yes, it has to be omni-channel, meaning online, meaning live, meaning in business or virtual, on the phone or via chat. You have to think about how you're communicating and selling to your customers. But here's the one that really is the most important: taking the customer's point of view. That is what matters more than anything else. If you're looking at things from your lens, your business lens, you may actually miss things that are very important to your customers. And so that is an important way to make sure that you are looking at things from their point of view, or an outside-in approach, because when you do that, you will start to feel their pain, see the problems they're trying to solve, understand what their wins feel like. And when you're doing what's called a journey map, I'm asking you to make sure you're considering your customers' thoughts and feelings. What are they seeing and hearing at every step along the way? We're going to talk about people, place, product, and process. We're actually going to walk through that here. That's important. And we're going to talk about what people's pains, gains, and questions are along the way. So here is the touch points that we want to talk about. So the first are the people, then the product, the place, and the process. These are the touch points that are going to matter most. So let's talk about people. They're the folks getting it done. This is your who. Who is going to do this? Who's going to serve people, make things, take care of customers? These are your people. The next part, the place. This is the where. The location where services happen, and it could be a live or a virtual environment, it could be a website or a contact center, but this is where the action happens. Then you've got your product. Yes, this is your thing. This is the what. It's the product, the service, the item. What do your customers need, and what will solve their problems? Now let's talk about process. And this one is the boring one, but don't take your eye off this prize, because this is the how. It's the rules, it's the training, the process, the policies that are going to define your service and your quality standards. So process is really important, because this is how things get done and how you repeat success over time. Now, the way you can bring this to life is through journey mapping. And this is one of my favorite activities. We do whole day workshops on this, where we actually take a walk through your business live and actually do this stuff. It's one of my favorite things to do, because it's a real eye-opening experience if you look at things from your customer's point of view. So this is, I know, a very, look at that. Wow, what do I do with all those blanks? But we're going to actually walk through this a little bit, because you really, once you see what the steps are and look at actions, questions, and potential pain points, here's the goal, is to think about what your customers need and want at every step, and what might hassle them or inconvenience them or cause questions, and then go fix them. And that's really where you start to seem like you've got a superpower. So let's look at the steps of going to a restaurant. Anybody here ever go to a restaurant? Put it in the chat if you have. That's right. I knew most of you had all been in a restaurant. That's great. So restaurants are important, and we're happy to have a lot of them starting to open back up again. But I want you to think about your experience going to a restaurant. It's something we can all share. And then as you think about these steps, as we walk through it, this is an example. But I want you to start thinking about your business. How could you translate the steps of your experience at a restaurant to understand what the journey is, and translate that to what customers may experience in your business? These are very transferable. So you may realize that you're hungry, and then you're going to think about your options to go out to eat. You're going to make a decision. You're either going to order online, or in this case, let's say you're going to drive to the restaurant, park, go in the restaurant, walk up to the host stand, wait, and then so on and so forth, all the way till you get your food and leave. And think about all the touch points. So the one thing to remember is there may be a lot of touch points in your journey. Not all of them are hypercritical. You can't consider everything at once. So I want you to consider how you dig into the most important parts of your touch point experience, of your journey map, and look at the critical points first. Let's dig in a little more. So let's take the parking part. So an action there. You have to find a space. You have to find a garage. Is there street parking? Is there garage parking? Is the parking free? Maybe a question that a customer might ask. Do people have to park in a garage? Is there street parking? Do I have to pay? How much is it? How long can I leave my car there? And then pain points, confusion about where to park, safety, time to find a space. Will I be able to find it afterwards? All kinds of potential pain points. Let's talk about waiting for a table at a restaurant. While you're waiting, you may be asking questions like, gosh, should I wait inside or outside? What's safest? How long will it take? Do I have to wear a mask? They said it was 10 minutes. Will it really be a 10-minute wait? And then pain points, no place to sit. There's no Wi-Fi. I'm bored. Is it clean? My kids are running around. There's dust on the window ledges. Oh, there's something sticky on that seat. What is that? There could be any number of pain points while you wait to be seated at your table. And then once you're at your table, you read the menu and make decisions, but then you start asking questions. Maybe you're vegan or vegetarian. Maybe you've got a food allergy. Will they do substitutions? What's good for me? Maybe I'm trying to eat a more balanced diet. So thinking about all of these potential questions, and then the pain points. Maybe I can't read the menu. Maybe there's a long wait to get my beverages. Maybe I can't determine the nutritional information because it's not on there. Maybe it seems complicated to do a special order. So there could be any number of complications or pain points. And then when you leave the restaurant, so let's go to the finish line here. You walk out through the front door, but maybe you're asking yourself, oh my gosh, where to park? Will I come back again? Or maybe some pain points could be, I can't find my car. No one said thank you when I left. Or maybe, this has happened to me a lot. Maybe it's happened to you. In fact, put it in the text. If this has ever happened to you, you ever be done with your meal? Have you ever finished your meal? And as you're deciding, to go, you decided you're not going to have dessert. You had a great meal. Your server was Johnny on the spot throughout the whole experience. But when it's time to pay, they're nowhere to be found. Anybody ever have that happen? Put it in the chat if you have, because that is a real source of pain for me. When I'm a diner, that always aggravates me. When I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. So think about this. And I want you thinking about how this translates into what you can learn about your business by doing the same exercise, but turning this powerful lens on your own business, your own organization, your own mission. Because remember, it is about a combination of people, place, product, and process to deliver these world-class experiences. Now, if you're looking for a little bit of help, I can help. I do growth consulting and customer experience and leadership training and development for leaders and frontline associates. One of my favorite things is to help organizations look at their strategy and translate that into team behaviors and nuts and bolts training that can drive results and deploy. Or if you're looking for a little bit of motivation, I can do live or virtual keynotes. And think about this. If you're reopening your organization, bringing people back into the workforce, let's put some time on the calendar to do a virtual or live customer experience, really workshop or keynote or Q&A, or just motivation about connecting your team to their purpose so that you can really start to win as you bring people back to work again. One of my favorite keynotes right now is called Just 10% More. And it talks about how giving just a little bit more effort translates into Herculean increases in customer satisfaction. One of my favorite training workshops right now is called Creating a Culture of Service. And that's a workshop that actually brings leaders in to talk about how you can use selection, training, communication, engagement, recognition to really build your organizational culture, along with the customer journey workshops that I do. And we can do these things as an hour, a half day, a full day, whatever best suits your needs. This works because we have been there. This is something I know works because I've done it with many organizations, from organizations of 10 to organizations of 100,000 and everywhere in between. This is based on proven tactics, storytelling, and the fact that I was an operator for many years, and I want to bring that experience of driving success on the front line to your business. So please, let's talk a little more about that. But open Q&A. If you would in the chat, please type in any questions you have. You've been kind of a quiet group today, but here we go. What's a great first step to getting employees to adopt process? Well, that's a really good one. So one of my key pieces of advice here is to think about training, but it has to be in two ways, right? So you first want to make sure that organizationally, your senior leadership is endorsing and celebrating these things that you want to accomplish. But also, you have to invest in training. And that's something a lot of organizations have seen go by the wayside during the pandemic, is it was one of the things that had to get cut. I mean, we all know that, right? During tough times, a lot of organizations cut travel and training. So now it's time to consider how you bring that training back. Could be virtual, could be live. I'm a big fan of in-person, high energy, workshopy kind of training where we can do examples and do role playing, but whatever works for your business. And then you have to connect the dots. So your team has to be trained and they have to understand what matters, but your leadership has to set a great example too, because without that, it's going to seem disingenuous, flavor of the month, and people aren't really going to want to buy in. And then the last question, this is one that came from online today, and I was so happy that folks presented this. It says, let's see here, Tony, when you're thinking about building organizational culture, how can we ensure that both leaders and teams are aligned? Well, I think communication is so very important there. And I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, it really is about making sure that teams are on the same page. And last week, we actually had a great session on pre-shift huddles. And I think that's one thing that a lot of organizations neglect is they'll roll out a big program and then you'll never hear about it again. Anybody ever have that happen? If you have, put it in the chat, please. But think about how that can feel like, oh my gosh, I just have to wait long enough for this program to be over and they'll just give up and leave me alone. It can't be that way. So not only do you have to have a great rollout and organizational endorsement and senior leadership visibility, but you also have to make sure you're constantly talking about it. And those pre-shift huddles, those daily meetings are a great chance to reinforce what matters. And then along with that, if you start to hit snags along the way, ask your team what they need. Ask your team how you can help them drive success. Ask your team if they've identified any hiccups that maybe you need to think about smoothing over inside of their experience. Because remember, not just customer experience, it's about team experience too. So always a great way to keep engaging your team there, because if you can get them involved, they're going to be way more likely to dig in and help you with it and accept it and buy in, but also you're going to get some fantastic ideas. So never forget to engage your team. Now, if you're going to take action this week, and please take action this week, take that critical walk through your business. Shoot me a note at tony@igniteyourservice.com and I'll send you my journey mapping worksheet. You can actually use that. But take a critical walk through your business. And anybody who is actually on the call now, I will be sending that out and you will get that as a part of being on today's call. But if you're watching this in replay, shoot me a note, tony@igniteyourservice.com, and I will send it right to you. Determine what the needs of your personas are and craft customer experience moments and policies and just, really service acumen and hospitality that will drive those results, drive what your customers need, fix and solve the problems they're trying to solve. And if you need a little more help, go to igniteyourservice.com, sign up for your free 45-minute strategy session with me, and we will talk about it much more. Next week, we are going to talk about employee behaviors and steps of service. You will not want to miss this. I'm going to go through my guest model. All that said, if you want to connect with me, I'm on all the best social media channels. You can find me there. Please connect with me if you're so inclined. I love to keep the conversation going. But with that said, here's my contact information. You were so great to give me a few minutes of your day today. Please keep your customers at the center of everything you do, because that's where the most amazing things are possible. And I'll talk to you next week.